Hello, and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast 00Status. I am one of your hosts. Motogo 553, Taylor, all those other fun aliases. Ivan Virtue. Whatever. I'm here. Hi. And with me is the I don't know. The positively pernicious. I don't know where I'm going with that one. Sushi B, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Our last recording, I still had some congestion. You can probably still hear it in my voice, but feeling a lot better, at least otherwise. And looking forward to this one. When you picked this, I was excited just because it's nice to get through the second Dalton movie. And like I said, I've been really waiting on this one to come up again just after we got through Living Daylights. So
yeah, it's been a minute. We kind of there's a big gap between hitting this other one. I was waiting for you to pick it.
I assumed at some point it was going to be me that was going to pick it, but that's okay. It's all good. We got to it. I knew it was going to come up at some point, and I'm perfectly fine where it falls in our list. And like I said, looking forward to getting through it today.
Most certainly. So, things I picked it, I guess I will start us off here in the wonderful realm of memories and stuff. And before watching it, I couldn't tell you when I had seen this. However, after watching it, the point of which a certain very, very young Del Toro makes his exit from the film, I'm like, I've seen this sometime, buried in my memory, because for a while there, I just thought I had not really fully seen the movie. And I'm like, I've seen this, and I cannot place where I sat down and watched it, because I remember the whole back part of the movie and stuff. I'm like, what the? Oh, yeah, I've seen this. I couldn't pinpoint where. It's just kind of weird because it's just it's just a very odd. There's something odd about this movie that, not that it's odd bad, but just odd, maybe just because of how tonally different it is. Kind of like Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die has a very strong sense of itself that makes it stick out compared to a lot of the other Bond films. I think this one does as well, in its own way. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've got a point on that when we get back around to that. As I said with Living Daylights, I used to just constantly interchange bits from each movie and confuse the two movies a lot. I don't know why. Who knows? Maybe I seen them often back to back in those marathons and stuff. Like one night might be one Dalton, and then the next Dalton might be the next night or something. And as you watch them, and then as just time progresses, you just sort of start melding, just like anything, right? Like you just assume that this was one scene in a particular movie, and then it wasn't. So I couldn't really pinpoint exactly, maybe like yourself, where and when I have seen it all the way through. But I did watch it, I believe I think it was last year. Yeah, it would have been last year. I did recently watch The Living Daylights and License to Kill were the two that I had seen of the entire Bond franchise, just those two last year.
Just to brush up on it, because we kind of, when did we dive back into doing this? About May?
Oh, geez. Something. I would say maybe 6-7 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, it was a little bit of time. But, yeah. Yeah, it is just one of those weird. It is one of those that's like, this is distinctively 80s all around. Like, which, I'm not against, but some people, it certainly didn't seem to work for American audiences first time around when it came out, because it seemed like it had done better worldwide than it did in the States.
Doesn't that seem weird to you? Just because it hits so many of those. See, to me, it is weird because it's like, okay, you've got Rambo, you've got Commando, you've got all these movies that have some similar Miami Vice. Like there's hints of Miami Vice in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of that stuff. So you would almost, to me, I would almost think that this would be, right up that alley. But
that I think is the problem, is that you already have an established thing with Bond, and even with the Living Daylights, it did not veer too heavily away from what was already there. But this one just kind of it steers into what's going on. And I think that's part of the problem. It's too much like the other sort of films of that era, or at least because this is 89. So it's already, so this is already kind of on the back end of that.
Closing out the decade.
Closing out the decade. You're kind of pushing into the year 1999. We've got to worry about Y2K and all that stuff. Come on. But it really, I think that's part of the problem, is that I think, and maybe this is just projection on my part, I think a lot of people will be like, well, it is not like one of these things, it's not like the other. Oh, it's not like I think that really hurts it, in the sense of when it first came out. Was that, people are like, oh, this isn't. I could go just watch Rambo, or I could just go watch Miami Vice, or
just whatever,
whatever sort of more actiony.
Die Hard.
Die Hard. Like, even though the stunts and stuff are really good in this, I think that there's a grit to it. It is a dirty film, but I don't think it's in a negative sense. It strips away a lot of that glamour, even though there are like casino bits, and the Lupe, Talisa Soto, pretty attractive lady in this, I feel like.
Yep.
But there's still that veneer that's kind of there, but it's kind of dusted over. It's caked on with a lot of dust, which I think really it doesn't give that same sort of Bond je ne sais quoi that a lot of people look for when they're like, it's a Bond film. Yeah.
It definitely breaks some of the tropes to some degree, but all of the stuff you're saying to me just strikes me as what you can see in other Bond movies. From Russia with Love is very much just your typical spy thriller in a way, right? Like, I know it's not completely, but it's following that genre. You have Live and Let Die, blaxploitation movie. You have The Man with the Golden Gun, 70s kung fu style movie. Like, or, theme, like sort of theme.
70s
right?
Dick Cheese movie.
Yeah. You have Moonraker, Star Wars in space, or, Bond in space. You have,
Bond,
so it's not like, this isn't just completely unprecedented. They're just like, oh, we need to make an 80s action movie. It's kind of following into a genre that's been seen in other Bond movies. So, but I could see I see your point. I guess I'm still having a hard time maybe you're right. Maybe it's just, it's too much of the same in a way. Like, if people were looking to Bond, they would be expecting a certain thing, but it's not like this hasn't happened in other Bond movies. But this movie definitely does strip away some of the, like the tropes, if you will, or like what you might expect to see from previous Bond films.
I'll save it for a little bit later, but there's, I think, a very big sticking point, but I'll save it for a little bit later.
Okay.
But, just kind of keep that feather in your cap for a moment.
Sure. But even this, and I'm thinking like The Spy Who Loved Me, like romantic, spy movie, right? Kind of thing. Like, that was the intention, at least. And so, yeah, it's, I don't feel like it's that far stretched in some regards, but but as you said, we're looking at this however many years way past the point, so we can look at it very differently and either respect or dislike it based on those notions.
33 years later.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting that this is sort of that bookend of the 80s, right? Like, in each decade, there's always a bit of carryover. Like, disco didn't just suddenly die in 1979.
Right. Well, I know we've talked about it, privately and sometimes sprinkled it in, but like, look at something like Conan the Barbarian. That is so much more like of a 70s
movie, yeah, but it's early 80s. So.
Right. Yep. And it's just like, yeah.
Yep,
so
for sure. Yeah. And that's always going to be the case, right? With fashion, with anything. Those first few years, there's still kind of hanging on to the transition it doesn't look at the number and be like, yep, we're moving on to the next thing. Right. But there's definitely a flow to each decade, right? There's things that stick out, but it doesn't happen until that second, third year that you kind of start to see those new trends really start to build upon themselves. Right. and kind of move away from what was previous. And then you get that weird like cycle that's like 20, 30 years. Like, you remember when the 70s kind of became kind of popular in the 90s again, and then in like the 2000s, the 80s kind of became a thing for a while, and the 90s have kind of had a bit of that resurgence for a bit. I don't know if it's quite as strong as, say, the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s had at one point, but...
Because there's not that much of a difference between the 90s and nowadays, I would argue.
Not as much, perhaps, yeah.
It's not nearly as pronounced, maybe socially speaking, but like culturally, I know that might sound really like playing linguistic ninjutsu there, but like it feels like the advent of the internet has caused like a flash freezing of a lot of cultural nuances that have just sort of either stymied, spun their wheels, or have just kind of that which spins its wheels have spun them like kind of like one of those like cheapo little rockets when you light it, and it just kind of, instead of just shooting in the direction you want it, it just sort of goes bing,
and spins in a circle on the ground.
Spins in a circle around, or just like spins and just slices or hooks or whatever.
You're trying to get out of the way so it doesn't hit you. Right. Yeah, maybe, and it's just plus the way that media and the way media is consumed, the way it's presented, the way that we interact with each other is constantly just voraciously overeating itself.
Right.
We went from MSN Messenger to AIM to, so forth and so forth, and to what we have now, right, with Twitter and whatever else. So yeah, it seems like it's just, it overtakes itself. So it overshadows everything so quick that the last thing feels ancient within a short amount of time. Whereas you can really distinctly say the way people consumed media in the 80s and the 90s was very different than it is now. So, and probably, as you said, starting maybe around the 2000s, where the internet became much more commonplace for everyone to have in their home. But anyways, back to License to Kill. So.
Right, that's for another time. License to Kill.
Sounds like a good discussion at some point.
Yeah.
Perhaps a rambling weekly.
Well, there we go. I will say this. I will probably misspell this title.
Okay.
Just because there's an S in there somewhere that I just don't see.
Like defense?
Right.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, I guess I'll start with some good things. Dalton's back, yay!
Yep.
That is a nice thing. This movie is nearly 2 hours and 15 minutes long, but I don't feel like it's that long. I don't know if it's because it does have a fairly strong first act on what it is. And the second act what it is, and the third act is, I think there's a little bit more of a muddled mess in that. Maybe, but I think it's still distinct enough to be like, it's pretty understandable. What is this and this and this and this? I think the pacing for this movie is not too bad.
Okay. Yeah. No, I like the pacing as well. and the beginning and the end are more of the action, like I guess that what you would expect of those 80s action movies. But the middle certainly still has some of the
it has
spy
ninjas.
Well, yeah, but it also has some of the spy stuff that's kind of brought out a little bit more in that middle section, and a little bit more of the espionage action of like trying to infiltrate and misdirection and things like that. We get that in the middle part, and so it feels a little bit more like a traditional Bond in that middle section.
Yeah, it does have a really good tense scene with Bond and Sanchez, where they meet properly for the first time, and at Sanchez's casino and stuff. Like, it's like, oh no, Bond, what are you doing?
Just walks straight in like he owns it.
Right, and I don't know, it feels pretty intense, and maybe that's because, like, throughout the first portion of the film, Sanchez is, and this whole film, kind of violent.
Yeah,
there's a bit more violence in this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he definitely is I would say as a whole, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the villains in this are certainly a step up from Living Daylights. Like completely on the whole, right? Whether you're talking about the subset of villains, if you're talking about, like, Necros is not bad in Living Daylights. Right. He's probably the strongest of the villains, or at least the most compelling. Whereas here, at least you have, but I get it. People are like, oh, they just play totally the 80s slime ball or whatever, right? And they are, but at least there's intrigue when they're on screen. Like you loathe most of them. They're just so slimy that you just don't like them.
Well, I will say this: I don't. Sanchez, it's less that he's slimy, because he's almost like an evil Bond. Like, I think he does, because there's parts like early on when he's like winking, and you see that sort of like charismatic tinge to him. Like, Robert Davi, he did fantastic. He was fantastic as Sanchez. I loved him as this, because it's not like he's doing some sort of, I'm going to fire space lasers at the planet, or I'm going to just blow it up because I don't like it. You people, you plebs, you plebes, whatever. I don't know how you say it, but you muddled masses are so far beneath me.
He's just a businessman.
Well, but he's looking to expand the empire.
Right.
Honor is more valuable than money. And you're like, oh, all right, and yeah.
Well, and on that note, very similar to the Kananga plot, right? With Live and Let Die, like there's some parallels there. And I wouldn't say that the acting is necessarily the same of like the actions of the characters. They're more than enough differences between the two, but they
both pull out a machete.
They do. One pulls his face off though, and another doesn't. Right. But their realism it makes them an enjoyable villain. They're not too over the top. So.
Yeah. It's that plus, you get the sleazeball part with the locale, and I think this filters into what I was saying about you're not really getting quite as much of a sleek Bond experience, because you're going to do like some dive and stuff a little bit like in that. Dario, who is like Benicio del Toro, which is kind of neat to see. Super young. Yeah, he's the slime ball that you just are like, oh man, oh, go away.
Yeah,
I do not like you. Like, he's fine. He's good.
No, it's a good thing that he's that greasy, and he's just really not menacing, but he certainly got that unhinged behavior. And it's too bad he doesn't get it. He's in the movie enough for what he needs to do, but I wish there was a little bit more, because he kind of disappears for a good chunk until the very end, basically.
Well, and it kind of had to happen because of...
Yeah, for the way the plot's moving.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
The plot itself, I also really enjoy, because it's basically, maybe this is the linchpin of it for between these Live and Let Die in this movie. It's all about Felix Leiter, who's the same Felix Leiter
Felix, yeah.
from that movie. Who is he gets married and then his wife gets killed and then somehow he survives getting partially chewed on.
Yeah.
Like a dog toy by a shark.
Yeah.
Good on you, Felix, I guess. But yeah. So but and then Bond goes.
He has not lost the will to live.
Well, what was that, Death Wish 3 or whatever?
Well, no, and then also that Star Wars, right? When it's like, oh, it's for unexplained reasons. She's just seemingly lost the will to live.
Oh, is that, what's that one from? I've literally watched maybe like 2.5 Star Wars films.
It's in Revenge of the Sith, the third one that Padme dies giving birth to Luke and Leia.
Okay.
And they're like, for some unexplained reason, she's dying. And they're like, well, what's the why? Like, is she losing blood during childbirth? Is there a complication with the childbirth? And then the robot just simply says she's apparently lost the will to live.
Oof. That happens in like Death Wish 3 or something. There's like one of the Death Wish movies. There's like a minor accident, and it's like, how is she dying? Like, I don't know.
Death Wish 3 is a pretty intense movie. Then when he gets that Wildy gun and he just like guns that guy down in the back when he steals a purse.
Wildy's here.
Who's Wildy? Wildy. Oh no! Don't tell me we're watching all the Charles Bronson movies.
Yes.
He's excellent in the Magnificent Seven. He's really underrated in that. He's really good.
But but yeah, pivoting back to License to Kill, Felix's wife gets killed, and then he is maimed pretty severely, and then Bond gets mighty touched in the head to where he gets very angry. He's like, I really don't like this Sanchez person. I'm going to kill him. And I like how he, in his pursuit of this, he also fudges up things. Not because of the failed assassination attempt, but because what it does is it actually screws up something else entirely. Like, we had this plan to stop him from getting these Nikita missiles or Stinger missiles and stuff.
Stingers,
yeah, because you've done this. He's bouncing back on his word, and it's like, he doesn't care because he's on a trajectory, and like everything else is going to get shredded in the process.
Yeah, there's some good sort of twists with some of these characters because everyone feels very untrustworthy for most of the film. A lot of these characters, you don't know where they're gonna be by the climax and the ending. There's only really one character I can think of that as you're watching, you're like, okay, I'm gonna assume this character is not gonna betray Bond or do something out of the expected outcome. But the others, you're kind of not sure where they're gonna end up. And not including Q, of course.
Well, but I think a strong character or like character to point out for this would be Quang. Because you kind of see him in the background, and then if you've seen different movies, he's been in a few of them. Because what's his name, Hiroyuki Tagawa.
Yeah.
What's his first name?
Carrie.
Carrie. Thank you. Yeah. So he is certainly familiar in a lot of things. Wasn't he in? What is he in? What's that movie with?
Well, he's in Mortal Kombat.
Oh, there you go. I wasn't
probably
even
one of the most
I was thinking
prominent roles.
Isn't he in? What's the one with Bruce Lee's son and
Rapid Fire?
No, it's like Little Tokyo or something.
Showdown in Little Tokyo.
He's in that, right? He's the villain in that.
I watched it a year ago, and it's funny. My friend Swordfish was just talking about it and how much he loved it. He watched it like a week ago. He's like, that movie's so good.
It's such a bonker. That's another.
It's such an 80. That's like I think
movie.
an 89 or 90 as well. Like it's like right in that transition.
Outside of Lee's infatuation with, oh God, what is his name?
Dolph Lundgren?
Lundgren's penis there at certain points. You're just like...
Oh, there's a really bad joke with Tia Carrere and that stuff too, but that's a fun movie, but he might be the villain. I drawn a blank if he is or not, but he might be. But most people probably wouldn't remember him from the first Mortal Kombat movie that came out in the early 90s.
Mm.
And so is Talisa Soto as Katana. So there's two.
Oh yeah.
There's two Mortal Kombat alum, and the DE agent plays Balrog in the Street Fighter movie. So there's a lot of
which the
one that pulls Bond aside to take him to turn him over to M.
Okay.
That guy plays Balrog in the Street Fighter movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh.
So there's a lot of even Robert Davi's in the first Die Hard movie. He's the guy in the helicopter. He's like the CIA or FBI or whatever he is. He's that one agent. Mm-hmm. So you got that as well. Like you just have a lot of interesting trajectories for these actors where they end up going and stuff after. So obviously Benicio del Toro has a pretty prominent career after this as well. Mm-hmm. So I can't forget our friend Mr. Wayne Newton. We'll get to him at some point.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, he's not in it a ton, but it's funny. As little as he's in it, he's memorable enough. Like I remember very distinctly him being in a Bond movie. I just couldn't remember which one.
Oh goodness. But yeah. Plot is, and just how these characters interact with one another is pretty good because it's outside of, I would say, Soto's character Lupe being the weakest of the bunch. Mm. I feel like she's probably the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah, honestly, her acting is not very good in this. It's very overacting.
Mm.
The only line that I love from her is when when that crest comes in, and she's like, "You're borracho," like just calls him, "You're drunk."
right.
That's probably my favorite line in the movie. From the probably weakest actress.
Yeah, that's probably her strongest scene.
Yeah. But Crest is he's a good slime ball in this. Like he's so just he's such a slime
he gets a horrible death though.
He sure does, yeah.
Oh man, I'm just like, that's
got to be one of the most violent Bond deaths. Like it has to be.
It's certainly at least the most violently displayed one.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar to Goldfinger getting sucked out of a.
Yeah, but we don't get him exploding,
no,
blood and guts, whereas this guy just literally pops like a balloon.
Oh man, it's so awful.
It's pretty awful. But when it happens when he gets thrown in there, because he's such a grease ball, right? You're just like, you don't feel empathy at all for him, even though he's been, Sanchez has been double crossed or played on the death.
Seemingly played. Yeah.
But you're just like, whatever, Crest, I could care less if this character dies. But he's played well. Like again, I find the actors, they seem to be having a good time playing their their roles, and yes, it's very over the top, but again, not out of the realm of what you would expect in an 80s action movie. So I'm fine with it. Like Truman Lodge is he's kind of overacting too, right? Like with this whole, it's all we just got to make the money, just get the money, and how can we can't lie to them? We got to we got to be truthful about getting the money, and it's just all kind of silly. But yeah, M isn't in this much, but his role is relatively important to the one scene that he's in. So
right, because he's mighty mad that Bond did not take his plane flight to Turkey, I believe it was.
I think Istanbul. Yeah, I think it was Turkey.
And it's like, hey, you got a job over there. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're doing? Okay. No more license to kill for you.
Yeah. I guess this is a farewell to arms.
Here's
That's a bad sniper, by the way.
Oh, right. Here's something that I also really to add to how how low they have held the opinions of the intelligence of American movie audiences. This movie was going to be called License Revoked, and they weren't certain that people understood what that meant.
Oh, jeez.
So that's why it got changed to License to Kill.
Oh, jeez. Well, and I didn't know that. I just assumed License to Kill because we do hear that phrase throughout what is however many Bond movies up to this point,
right.
15 or whatever it is. So I just assumed they picked it out because they didn't want to use another title from any books or didn't feel that they should. So they picked a, I don't know, common phrase or common term that people would associate with Bond is what I would have guessed, but interesting that they changed it.
They didn't think of that, and yeah, I mean there could have been something else to it, but from what I remember from the behind the scenes, that was kind of like they didn't have a very strong opinion or a good opinion.
They assumed that they needed to make this a little simplified.
Well, that or just be like, that could be in a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get your driving license revoked, fishing license revoked, that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay. Huh.
So, but that Q's a lot more in this film.
He is, yeah.
Which is kind of surprising. And just that's probably another an oddity in the script itself, where it's like Q being out here is not really what should be, or really shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
He is certainly bouncing around the world a lot for being quartermaster.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was in India just a couple movies ago.
Yeah, for Octopussy.
Yeah.
I don't disagree
at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but so. I mean, it's kind of fun. Like it's fun to have.
It's nice.
Like
it's
I mean, he's playing kind of like dear old dad or whatever in this kind of thing, right? But I have some fun with Q being here, and he's not completely bumbling like he is to some degree, but his function in purpose here is still done interesting enough.
Stronger.
And, it's not bad.
I do like when Bond's told at the reception desk, it's like, "Oh, your uncle's here."
Yeah,
and then he's like, "You got a gun? Let's make this a proper family reunion." It's like, oh no.
And that gun is even smaller than a PPK.
Yeah, right.
That's a total pew pew. Right. And I love how she has a second one too in her purse.
Yeah, I actually like Bouvier. Actually, yeah, I like Bouvier there. I think she's a good kind of, what do you call it, antagonist or whatever, like the secondary protagonist sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe not strong line delivery all the time, but I think for the most part, pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so. And she's certainly a step up from the capabilities of why am I drawing a blank from Living Daylights?
You drew a blank on her before.
Yeah, the cellist.
It's is it like Carrie or something?
Something like that.
Carrie.
But it's funny because I did
Carol, Carla.
Something, but I like that character in Living Daylights for what she offered because and the way the story played out, it made sense. But this character is Bouvier in this one is obviously meant to be a bit more resourceful, more skilled. She's still a bit clumsy, like she still has some gaffes here and there, but she's certainly capable of handling herself in certain moments and situations.
Mm-hmm.
Lupe is more sort of that lost kind of always needing someone to lead her type character. Like she's a bit more.
And especially like a situational sense of who she's with.
Right.
She thinks she is Sanchez's girlfriend.
Right.
So it's kind of like, you've really, you're not necessarily spider catching things in your web.
No, but
you're the one getting caught in the web.
Yeah, she sure doesn't seem to get the message after Buddy in his undies early on gets his heart cut out, seemingly gets his heart cut out, and there she is still just going to, be with Bond like it's nothing, and like she just.
Well, because she's not, outside of the being whipped part right at the beginning, like there's not really, she's not getting much else punishment in that regard. Right. And some people, they kind of like that sort of thing. So, you get into some weird territory there.
Right, yeah. That just sure is a nice living quarters, though. It's very 80s, but it's pretty neat that he's got like the whole casino and stuff is I like that.
Pretty much stuff. The whole like city kind of, or even country, but isthmus.
Yeah.
Which is the president is the son of from Russia with Love's Karen Bay there. That's his son.
Okay,
which
cool.
Which is cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that resemblance for sure.
So that's a really cool nod.
Very, very limited screen time, right? Like he's
but it's still just it's nice to see.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
So
it's always cool to see these sort of callbacks, and seems like that we always hear like how Cubby Broccoli seemed to really have as much as he could. He'd always try to bring people back, or keep family ties. Like, okay, this actor was in this, let's bring in their son or daughter or whatever. Like, he seemed pretty aware of that kind of stuff. That's kind of neat.
Let's see, other good stuff. Like I mentioned before, the stunts. I think the stunts are really well done.
Yep.
And when he was allowed to do them, Dalton was like, "Yes, it should be me. If you're looking and seeing it, it should be me." Mind you, of course, he did not do the one that nearly killed a stuntman, which was that tanker where he falls and catches on. It's like, oof, no, thank you.
Yeah. Well, wasn't Dalton's thing is, of course, he wanted to do as much as he could, but wasn't his whole thing basically, it shouldn't matter if it's Timothy Dalton or a stuntman. You should just, if you're watching the movie, it should just be Bond, right? Of course, it's better if it's me, simply because you can see my face. I'm playing the character, and whatnot. But if it can't be me, you don't want to be taken out of the moment and just expect that it's Bond, right? Like so. Which is, I love that idea and that mentality of how do we make not only the best movie, but to make this universe wrap around, right? We want you to be a part of this and to not be in some level of disbelief, other than the fact that, okay, it's crazy if you're diving out of an airplane and, some of those things, sure. But yeah, for the continuity's sake and stuff, I really appreciate that focus that he had and his sort of, approach to how that goes.
I agree. So how about stuff? Is there something you want to?
I like a lot of the stunt work is very good in this movie for sure. I gotta hold it for the negatives, but one thing is I like the explosion at the base at the end. What is that place called?
Prayer.
Just the whole thing just going off.
It was like a park place that was built for Indians. Is what it was. The indigenous people that live there.
Right.
Some president, when he was bouncing out, was like, "Hey, I built you this place," and none of them was aware of it. They're just like, they didn't know where it was. They didn't know what it was about. They're just kind of like, they built this thing without even.
Crazy.
It was just kind of like, oh. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a cool base, but and that's obviously an explosion that they couldn't just mimic through computers and stuff. It's a pretty substantial explotion that happens when those people are running out.
Few substantial.
There explosions. But that one's quite good. Like as Bond and Bouvier are out, and on the backdrop there's this huge explosion going off, and I like the truck chase. I could see some people just being like, "Oh, that's just too 70s, 80s." But I have fun with that, and
I enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's something different. You got the 4 trucks, and I like the one truck driver that's just so blindly following order. He's just trying to he's trying to push Bond off and stuff. And it's so weird that that guy just so easily just follows orders for no real apparent reason. But
right.
The idea of transporting the drugs is interesting. Like, to liquefy it into the fuel and stuff, and to separate it after. And,
yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. And then
that's a pretty clever, neat idea.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how chemically possible that is.
Yeah.
I do like though. It's like I just keep the gas considered a like
bonus or whatever.
A bonus.
Yeah. So I like that. It's something. There's a level of realism there that it is believable. Like it's probably not actually possible, but it's also not so far fetched that
right, because there's not a one for one way of just like you can totally magically make this work.
Right,
but it's still a neat, like it's kind of what I had mentioned way back when for Die Another Day. Mm-hmm. It's like on that odd point of which it's like it's not really science fiction. Mm-hmm. It certainly is more fiction, but at least there's enough that it doesn't try to bog you down with technobabble.
Right.
But it doesn't try to like be so ridiculously just like oh sure, okay, yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. And one other thing is to double back down is I feel Dalton seems very comfortable and confident again in this movie. Mm-hmm. Even more so probably than the previous movie, where he seemed perfectly capable and confident in that one as well. One thing I'm surprised.
A comfiness. Ahead. I was going to say, there's just certainly a comfiness for him for this second time around. Mm-hmm. He's comfy.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'm surprised you haven't brought up yet, and perhaps it will come down the line, is so in Living Daylights we had the whole we're going to cover the tie with the suit, and in this we have the, what do you call that sort of belt thing that goes like that?
The mail garter.
Yeah, well, and how he pulls that out and he's got all of his tools and stuff in there. It's like, okay, I figured I said watching like Taylor's probably going to really like that. Because it's like that. Functional.
That whole sniper setup and everything. Yeah. I loved that.
Me too. I liked it a lot. And I like that, he has the cigarette box, but he doesn't smoke in this one, and very much like he does. Well, but it's not. It's far more limited though, than the previous one. I feel like he smoked a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole espionage sequence there until you get to sort of that ninja piece, which is a little bit kind of just out of the blue. Like it's just suddenly there, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like where did that all kind of come from? But the build up to trying to set off the explosive and snipe him and stuff, is really cool, and how he's rappelling down, and I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Yeah, and I like the pulling the tools out and just that whole night vibe to it and everything. It seems to be that those night scenes, when they hit them, they hit really well.
Right.
Even in questionably, I was gonna say, even in questionable movies, they seem to hit really well. And it did. Probably the weakest one I can think of is Skyfalls.
Okay.
In Macau.
Yes,
it's not quite that, because there's not a subterfuge moment to it. It's very straightforward.
It's straight to the casino kind of thing, right? There's not really an outdoor night type.
Yeah, because you just have that little bit with him and Moneypenny, but it doesn't really pan out to a more of a cloak and dagger sort of thing.
Yeah,
a lot more cloak, a little less or a lot more dagger, a little less cloak. So
a clean shave.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah. I mean, that's still in the hotel and stuff, right? That still is a good scene, though. I do like that scene. But yeah, no, I see what you mean. Yeah, they seem to be able to nail that for some reason, for the most part. I don't know if we have too many of those still coming up in the final few films here. There's definitely one in You Only Live Twice.
Right.
There's a night bit there for sure, but
yeah. So that let's see. I really don't have a problem with our buddy Wayne Newton.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of similar to Diamonds. Oh, what's his name? What's his name that's in that?
Diamonds Are Forever?
Yeah.
I know there was a Cut Sammy Davis Jr. cameo.
Yeah, no, the singer. What's his name? He's in it. He's in it.
I can't remember which scene.
No, he's the. Oh, not singer. Jimmy Dean.
Oh, Jimmy Dean. Oh, with his
Kinda,
whole, like, I don't have no oil there.
Hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Okay.
So like, there's kind of a similar tinge to it there, but it doesn't, it's not nearly as questionable, we'll say.
Well, it's kind of Wayne Newton playing Wayne Newton, kind of. To some degree, right? Like, obviously, it's obviously he's not in Vegas or whatever, but he's still playing like a personality that's very kind of boisterous and attention getting and sort of thing. Right. And that seems to be his Vegas shtick too, right? Like the performance and stuff. So there's a lot of
bless your heart.
Yeah, but like I agree. He doesn't like take you completely out. Like you recognize him if you know who he is right away, but he's only in what 1, 2, is it 3 scenes?
4 at most, I think.
Like I don't know if I would count that last one that much of a scene. Like it is like he has one liner or whatever there. But when she just randomly pinches the bag, yoink!
Bless your heart.
Is it yoink? But the scene before that is good, right? When she infiltrates him and really suckers him in there, and he's again total skis bag, right? Like total. All of these villains are just sleaze bags in this movie.
Right.
They're just so like they're just slimy. They're all slimy. But I like how he just basically. I like it doesn't get too far. Like I'm glad it doesn't really get to an uncomfortable point. It knows where to cut off and it cuts off immediately. It's like, okay, that's good. Although, how did he escape that? You gotta wonder. Like a soundproof room.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how did he escape that?
That is a good question.
Maybe, the explosion, like, who knows? It disjointed his door enough that, you could push it out or something. Who knows? But
or there was a secret exit that only he knew of.
Something like that. Yeah. But like I said, I'm glad that scene didn't go further where it's like he's got his pants at his ankles or anything, silly like that, right? Like they play it just enough that you're like, oh, what a slime bag. Oh, good. Yeah. There we go. Good job. Moving on. I know this movie is violent, but, and to some it is probably out of place for a Bond film. But I don't know why I don't mind it in this movie. Like the tone is set like well enough that you're expecting it throughout, and it's like, okay, and it's over the top. Like you said, Felix getting his leg bitten off. You get a head exploding, which is really intense. You get, what else do we get in this?
You get the Dario there getting
chewed up by the rock grinder.
I love that line too. That Sanchez is like, well, he says something like, "He'll be." He says something when it's like at your feet, he'll do something, but when it reaches your knees, you'll be begging for me. You'll kiss my ass to kill you.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, like, that is a good line. And well, even Sanchez, right? Like his death is pretty violent, I think. Like he gets torched. So.
He gets the big boss treatment.
He gets torched.
He gets the big boss treatment.
So there's a lot of violent deaths in this movie, and not all on Bond, right? Like they're not all like him tossing people into stuff, but like I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me that much.
No, it tonally it fits. It fits for the film, tonally for the series. Not so much in a lot of ways. Even Daniel Craig's violence. No, unless that last one really gets hyper violent.
Yeah, not to this degree.
Right.
I can tell you that for sure.
So,
but there is a parallel, I feel, with Quantum in this to some sense. Like just the idea of the revenge, Quantum, Craig's Bond is certainly a bit more of the loose cannon. I think there's still some level of sort of responsibility in this Bond, in Dalton's Bond in this movie, to some degree still. Like he's still trying to be smooth in how he's approaching and doing this, whereas in Quantum it's very just bull in a dish store or dish shop or whatever, right? Like just smash your way through.
I would say Craig's Bond would not have been able in Quantum would not have been able to do that back and forth with Sanchez,
right?
And had this is glass that unless it had a cannon, I'm not getting through,
right?
Kind of thing.
He would have found a cannon to get through.
He would have fired himself in the cannon.
Probably.
Breaking through it with his abs.
Yeah,
and been like, hey,
with his abs. His laser eye, blue-eyed focus would just burn right through. Why can't I picture him like abs first trying to smash through? That's funny.
I was gonna say, do you have any other positives that you want to throw out there?
There's probably more that are just not striking me at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
One that's probably again divisive, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I'm thinking you don't like it. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. I like the theme song. It doesn't fit tonally to the movie, but I like the theme song.
I love the theme song.
Okay, well, I was not expecting that. I really wasn't, because it does fit tonally to some of those more slower 70s tunes that we don't really, I mean, even the early 80s ones that you and I kind of in past episodes have said, not really for us, right? Like with the All-Time High and stuff like this. But I tonally, it's got and I know you don't like Goldfinger that much, but it does have the same kind of rhythm. It's like the 80s update of Goldeneye, or of Goldfinger, sorry, basically. But I don't like the way the film cuts it. Like, it's cut, there's certain notes that if you hear the full song, because I've listened to it recently, the full song, it's just not cut well. Like there's points when Gladys Knight hits certain notes in the song and it's a higher pitch or it's a lower pitch, and it just doesn't fit the way they cut it in that opening sequence, the credit sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. There's something for me, like, this is where you start. This theme feels like it is the springboard for the GoldenEye theme.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the GoldenEye theme as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the License to Kill one is still really, really good. I mean, it's like that horn line or something that's. You're just like, it's Goldfinger, but it's not a Goldfinger.
No,
it's hopefully a whole lot different. I will say this, that ending thing sucked, but that's just, I mean, it's not that it's awful. Mm-hmm. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, no, I actually like the ending theme. I don't know why. Again, there's just something about. I'm more familiar with the Celine Dion version of that. I've heard she has a cover of that song too. And who is the singer of that one? Is it Gladys Knight? No, sorry, not Gladys Knight. It's
LaBelle. It's Patti
LaBelle. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I don't mind that song. It's very 80s cheese. Like even the backdrop. It's like it almost looks like Streets of Rage is about to kick on.
And I'm okay with that.
But does it not look? And that Streets of Rage opening theme song is so good.
Oh, it's so good.
On the streets of ... Rage ... with a license to ... kill ... But does it not look like the image from the Streets of Rage title scroll?
I could see, yeah, I could see that.
But it's such 80s cheese, right? Of just like you can think of like any Hong Kong movie from the 80s, any Japanese movie, like it, just that image of just like, you know, a night lit city with the title scrolling and just like a very sort of smooth 80s synth romantic theme song play.
Right.
So it could have been any song, but I don't know. I like the ending song as well.
Yeah. I'm not too keen on it.
Yeah, that's fair.
At least it's just, I don't know. It just did not. I'm just like, I'm good.
Yeah, that's fair. It's very similar. The Living Daylights had a similar kind of, again, romantic type theme at the end, if I recall. What was that one? That one's escaping me. I'll have to go back and listen to it. But it seemed that kind of ending being very similar to, like the end credits, kind of having a similar vibe to this movie.
Can't think of what that one is off the top of my head.
You know, I forgot. We didn't talk about two characters.
Which two?
Well, that one Killifer. What is he? A DEA agent or whatever he is.
Doofus, yeah.
Yeah. He's in Under Siege 2 with Steven Seagal. He has a knife fight with Steven Seagal.
Oh man.
Yeah, he looks a little different in that movie. He's got like a really short buzz cut and gray hair. And all I remember is this stupid line where he's like, "Chance favors the prepared mind." Like, but Steven Seagal and him have this stupid fight in the kitchen, and he gets all cut up. It's dumb. Anyways, so there's another weird random connection to a future movie. Yeah, he's a total dolt in this, but I like Sharky. Sharky he's not in it much.
Sharky,
but
yeah, he just doesn't get a lot of.
No, he doesn't.
Poor Sharky.
He plays the lieutenant from Last Action Hero that's constantly yelling like Slater. If you've seen that movie, that's him. That's the same actor. Again, another weird random connection to like another action movie and stuff. So, but yeah, Sharky. It's too bad. Sharky feels like he should have had a bit more to do, and he's kind of unceremoniously. Yeah, there's just a few of those. Death in this, right? There's just a lot of death in this movie. So, yeah. But I do like the compliments of Sharky, and Bond gets a little revenge for Sharky there. Because that guy has that stupid comment like, his name is Sharky.
This is for Sharky.
And we caught sharks with him, ha ha.
All right.
Like, oh, jeez, dumb.
Bam.
Yeah. You know what's one thing I do like, I forgot as well, is the weird underwater sub thing. I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting.
Oh, the drone.
Yeah, I like that it fills up with water on the inside too. I was like, oh, that's different. Like, that's kind of interesting in that they're wearing all their gear on the inside so they can swim out and get back in easily because it's not air compressed and everything. Like, oh, that's kind of neat. And the water stuff underwater is a little. It's a little long, but I find it more tolerable than having to sit through all of Thunderball's like really long underwater sequences.
Well, I like the retelling of it because Sanchez is like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
He just gets in a plane, flies off. Like, are you really?
You look so mad. All the more reason to not trust Crest, right? Because he already looks seedy enough as it is. He knows Sanchez knows that guys like lowballed him in the past. So and now he's telling him this completely, agreeably, like I would think that's a completely far-fetched story, but he's telling the truth. Right. He escaped 30 men. Are you serious? Like underwater? Like. But I find it not too bad. Like it's long, but at least it's not like it doesn't extend way, way, way beyond what it needs to. It is still fairly long though.
Well, I think it's also because it's leading up to it where he sneaks onto the boat and then they're like, well, there's somebody on the boat. Wee. That sort of thing. So,
do you not like when that $100 bill whacks Timothy Dalton in the face when he
laughs and he just kind of yeah, I thought that was
kind of. I'm sure it was a completely unscripted moment, but they just left it in the movie.
Right.
I know you haven't seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, but there's that fly that flies on Belloc's head, and then it flies into his mouth, and he's just telling this monologue, and a fly literally
Well,
flies
I've
in his
seen
mouth.
it.
It's
just been
but
like,
have you seen that scene?
it's been like ages since I've seen
Have you
it.
seen the scene when the fly like goes into his mouth?
Oh, that's so great.
And then it flies out. And it just continues his monologue.
Oh, good on him.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, wow, that's a true professional right there.
Seriously. No, I've seen it. It's just been ages since I watched it as a kid.
Yeah, but just there's kind of similar thing with like the money flapping right in the Dalton's face, just shrugs it off.
Like, that's funny.
Yeah.
So
what do you think
that?
about
And also,
that? Oh, go ahead. I was
gonna say it's also neat that you get to see the Hemingway house.
Yeah.
There are certainly some books of his that I'm like, I cannot read this, but one of my favorite novels, For Whom the Bell Tolls, kind of written by the guy.
Yep.
So that was cool that was included in the locale.
Nice. Yep.
So, but yeah, what were you saying about?
Like, I know you've talked about the stunts. What did you think of that opening airplane stunt, like with the whole helicopter attaching and pulling it, and
That was pretty neat.
skydiving and stuff?
Yeah, it was pretty neat. It felt like that whole opening felt long.
Mm-hmm.
I think partially because you're setting up Davi real quick, or Sanchez and everything, but it felt a bit lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like, here's the big thing. Here's like one of the big things you do like towards the end of the film, and they're doing it right at the beginning, which might also lead into the whole, this is why that truck bit doesn't feel so strongly.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I kind of think there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, like it's pretty spectacular, but it's so weird when you see something like that and you feel underwhelmed. Like, you shouldn't, because it must have taken so many countless hours to prepare, and safety and all that goes involved in that.
Right.
But it is pretty cool, just the way it's like kind of hanging, and Dalton, I'm sure like that was a really low, like when they did the helicopter, it must have just been a few feet off the ground or something. But
the helicopter was still up. It was up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Obviously not way up in the sky. But...
Well, no, but it was up enough to where he could land on the thing simulated, with the plane being just a little bit off the ground.
Okay.
Like propped up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Cubby was like, "What in the hell are you guys doing? Get him down from there! Stop it! Oh my God!"
Dalton just give it a big thumbs up, like, I love this. It's amazing. Yeah, you all that insurance and stuff. I can't imagine like trying to do a movie with these actors that are willing to do some of the stunts, because like directors are probably clenching their teeth. Producers are 100% clenching their teeth. Like, if anything goes wrong, we're in big trouble.
Right, right.
But yeah, I don't mind. I think it's a very interesting sort of opening stunt to pull off. But yeah.
All right. So here is, I'm going to kind of tag it with a bad mark, but it's like a bad mark. And this is the thing that was like, hey, keep feathering. I think part of the problem that why maybe audiences in the US are kind of like, I'm a little tepid towards this one, is as comfortable as Timothy Dalton is in this role, and I do really enjoy him in both this film and the previous film, it feels like he's just not utilized very strongly in it. And I get being, like an arrow shot flying towards its target, but it feels like it is very, very sparingly used here. I would feel a little bit more flavoring would go a long ways. I don't know. It just something about it seems a little light on the bond.
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe because the villains got so much more propped up back in this movie as compared to the previous. Because I don't think the writing is necessarily bad or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily his execution, but I think I see what you mean. Yeah, that maybe it's just a little too light on, especially for a revenge story. Like he definitely shows some emotion of anger and so forth. But yeah, I kind of get what you mean.
Yeah, it's just I would say that's probably, if I was to give a ding to the film, and it's a very big kind of it's like a chicken wing, right? There's just not a lot of meat on the bone. Some people really like chicken wings. I'm not quite one of those, so it's just kind of like this doesn't just like, it's a little bit of a sticking point for me on this film. So
okay. Yeah, and just being reflective of that, it's still it's interesting how audiences seem to not really dive into, because even to this day, you ask a lot of people about what do you remember about Dalton as Bond, they either don't remember or there just doesn't seem to be a lot of fondness. I would say more often than not. Like there's obviously people that are really, Dalton's my man, like I love him as Bond. Some that are more lukewarm of like, yeah, his movies are fine, I don't have an issue. And then, but there seems to be a bit more of the like, he just doesn't seem to come up in that conversation of he's my favorite, he's, in the upper echelon, whatever. And I don't know what it is. There's just
it's goddamn Roger Moore's greedy ass getting 7 films, and it's because of his stupid nonsense we didn't get more of Timothy Dalton. Mind you, that's not quite true. It is sort of true, but not.
That's not all Roger Moore's fault. I mean, he had said on several occasions, like, I think I got a packet in here, folks, and then just being like, here's a truckload of money, we need you back.
Here's a truckload of money. We're super worried because Sean Connery's making Thunderball 2.
Yeah, 80-year-old Sean Connery's coming back.
Electric Boogaloo, and we're scared. Gah.
Yeah, was Van Damme dancing in that one too?
He should have been.
He should have been. In the Predator costume.
But, it irritates me so much because you always kind of, you brought it up a whole bunch of times. It's like, man, what would have it been like to have had at least that third film for him?
Yeah.
And I know we do not give quite as much of a respectful questioning of what it would have been like if Lazenby done a few more of them.
Right.
But with Dalton, it's like he got screwed on both ends. Both are like starting early, and then what happens afterwards?
Right.
Because even now, I think it's still like the least grossing film of the whole series.
Oh, is it? Even more than Quantum? Like Quantum?
I could be wrong, but I think it's still like
one of the lowest grossing.
It's like the in the sense that not the grossing, but like the profit margin was like the weakest.
Okay.
So.
And that's hard to say, right? Those numbers they want those hardline numbers, but sometimes audience appeal and all that stuff is not always written in that. Like there's always other factors that could be as to why those numbers are lower, but we'd have to go and do all that research to find out. But that's unfortunate to hear.
It's just, yeah, it's just like stupid.
Yeah.
It's just stupid.
Well, some of the weirdest ones you wouldn't think would have made so much money did, right? Like a Moonraker, Man with a Golden Gun. I don't know what else.
Bad.
Yeah, just
Morgan, like 7 films.
Die Another Day made lots of money.
He gets 7 films.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Life isn't fair.
I don't care.
Agent 553, you'll soon see that.
It makes me so mad.
Yeah. One of the negatives I find, and it kind of rolls out of Living Daylights as well, they just seem to not be able to find the best attire for Dalton as Bond. It's not inherently bad or anything. It just seems
Nothing
to be
sticks out.
Yeah, like one of his best ones was in Living Daylights when he's interrogating the Russian, it's not Kozlov, what was that guy's name? Remember he busts in on his wife and him? And he's wearing kind of like that tan suit.
Right.
It's a great, and it looks great, like it looks awesome. It's probably his best look. And aside from like some of the secret operative stuff, right, of like covering the neck and stuff with for the sniper, like those are.
I'm appreciative that you always bring that up for my sake.
Well, not only because like they're good looks, right, and even this one, right, of taking off the tool belt and stuff is they're good, and he looks perfectly fine, like and good in a tuxedo, but just it just feels like there's just something a little bit missing there with some of the. I know
it's dressed down a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And I know for some that doesn't mean anything, but in some cases, like just think of some of the times you see Craig walking around and just how much more imposing or he can catch your eye in certain outfits, or just how much he can stand out in a scene based on what he's wearing. Whereas Dalton's Bond is a little less so. Like his suit at the beginning, like his best man suit is fine, right? Like it's nothing to really write home about necessarily, but
it would be something you could totally see, because I guess I'm face blind, but it's something I could totally see, something if I was to run into him on the street, that you would see Scott Bakula wearing. They do look similar.
And then he would walk through a time portal and quantum leap and appear somewhere else.
They do look somewhat similar.
Kind of, I guess. Yeah, I could kind of
at least in this
the big
film,
eyebrows.
I feel. And just have the haircut a little bit there.
Scott Bondcula.
Scott Bondcula.
Well, I think there was a few Quantum Leap episodes where he was dressed like very similar to a Bond.
I think so.
I'm sure there were several. Okay, and they were set in the 30s, the 40s, 50s, and things like whatever. I haven't seen that show in a long time, but
it's been forever.
Yeah, there's some remake or something I think coming out too.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something. It's like it's a great premise, right? Like it's something you can easily continue to milk for a long time.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
It's a great premise.
Another one, sliders. Why are there no more sliders? Did that just get stupid enough to where they're like, never again?
Maybe they ate too many sliders. So
they got, you take that back.
They got trapped somewhere in a bathroom. Couldn't make the next portal jump. I don't know. John Rice Davies is just like, no more. I can't take this anymore. I've been in too many big franchises as it is at this point. I've been in Indiana Jones. I've been in Lord of the Rings. I'm done. But yeah, I just find it's kind of, I not to knock, whoever does the wardrobe and stuff. It just seems, the flair is kind of missing a little bit, unfortunately. And this movie, I know the setting probably makes it a little bit harder to accommodate, but if you think again, going to Craig in the Bahamas in Casino Royale and just some of his just simple polo shirts that just fit appropriately, they're good tone and color for his style, the shades and stuff.
Him still being fairly borked out of his mind physically compared to.
Well, I don't think Dalton's out of shape or anything here, right?
Well, I'm not saying he's out of shape, but I mean,
just more
Craig
of an
was
average shape, I think.
Right. Craig was a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, there are other factors. But even thinking about like Roger Moore, I think a lot of his outfits were very, tuned to like his hair color and his eye color. Like there just seemed to be a little bit of more of a focus on, and you think of Connery, right? The white suit and Goldfinger, like just lots of iconic looks that Dalton doesn't unfortunately get very many of. Because even Brosnan, right, has stuff like in The World Is Not Enough, right? His sort of like, it's like almost like a tan gray. It's similar to the one that Dalton wore with the blue shirt underneath and stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just, that kind of, to me, does stand out a little bit.
Let's see, this is kind of a good/bad sort of thing. I myself feel like the writing is a little stiff, and maybe it's partially because of some of the actors delivering it. But I'm kind of like, and maybe it's just also how some of it's cut. It feels like there's some really snappy cuts where you're like, hold on, like you just delivered that line, and then the moment that it is out of their mouth, like, it hasn't had a chance to really, like, formulate a sound to anybody else in the vicinity. It's already like, cut, go to the next thing. It just feels, I don't know, it feels sometimes it just cuts a little too quickly, and the dialogue, a lot of it's kind of like, not a lot of it, but there's some of it here and there is a bit stilted.
Okay. Well, that's interesting to think, because this is John Glenn again, and what was this, his fifth Bond movie?
Yeah.
His fifth and final? So
yeah,
it's not like he was new to the franchise or anything, right? So.
Right. Well, he's directing it, so. I mean,
sure, but he might have, I would assume a director would still have some hand in that editing process, or.
Well, no, if I remember correctly, there was another writer strike. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so. Michael Wilson's getting he's kind of taking the full.
Oh yeah, I think I heard something about that. Yeah.
And then Maybaum, this is kind of his last little bit for it, so he didn't really get as much.
Okay.
Really as strong of appearance, and I think that's apparent in how this, in both the plot and also just the weaker dialogue. It doesn't feel like he's bouncing enough off of to make it a bit punchier.
Okay.
So.
We talked a bit about that ninja stuff, or like the martial arts stuff, just kind of thrown in there, unfortunately, and not really having much strength to the plot. I mean, it helps out in the sense of helping Bond's case with Sanchez, but other than that, we don't really get much setup as to why it kind of gets thrown in there, other than Quang, and just kind of swept under the rug pretty quickly.
That reminds me of the Mad TV skit with, what the heck's his name? Something Wilson. Big heavyset guy.
I think I know Will Sasso or whatever.
Will Sasso, thank you, that's his name. And Carradine's on there.
Okay.
And he's like practicing on Carradine, and he's like, "Oh, ninjas!" And they just appear out of nowhere, and Carradine's like, "I'm out here." I'll send you the clip. It's pretty funny. I miss Mad TV.
Yeah, I don't know. Any other glaring negatives you want
to? Honestly, those were the big ones for me. Was that kind of I would say those are the ones that stick out the most. Or just kind of being like, not too keen on that.
Okay.
Not too keen on that.
Okay. So. I just have one other thing, is just that the credits sequence is like, I don't know what you think on that, but there's a lot of nudity in that.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
There's a lot of nakedness, like,
and like visibly nakedness, like.
I'm not in like a horn dog sense, like it doesn't, like, I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, it's nakedness is nakedness. I mean, like it's there's certainly some of them where it's like, oh, they certainly skirted the edges a lot more there than others, but it doesn't. I'm not really hiding here. I'm not taking stills to be like, yes. It's just like, okay.
Pretty sure you can find a lot more on the internet these days.
Yeah, right.
Maybe in the 80s, people would, a little kid with a camera or something, go and run it and get developed.
So the pause made the fuzzy screen.
Yeah. You need to get those lines, like at the top of the huge, like, I don't know, like that snowy effect that would happen.
Right. Static looking thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Like, it's not amazing. It's not very memorable, but I will say the one lady on there, I don't know, like, I believe she's maybe Chinese, Asian performer.
I thought it was Quang's wife.
I assumed it was the same actress playing the ninja or whatever. But she obviously must be a ballet dancer, because like her body proportions are very toned, like her
right,
and her form and stuff, like the way she's jumping and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I kind of thought, yeah, is this the same actress that's in the casino that's in that later scene? Like I was just trying to put two and two together because
it doesn't really make a strong case for it.
I'm not sure, yeah, but like as in Golden Gun, right? There's the lady in the bottoms up or whatever, but that's she's presented in the opening credits sequence as well. So sometimes I'm trying to put those two and two together, and even the one lady looks like the performer, the female lead from Living Daylights. There's like that one shot where she's wearing like the diamond necklace, and I was like, is that the same actress? Like some of them. So I just thought it was a little confusing, but nothing there that really ties into the motif of the movie, unfortunately. So.
Right, which is a little bit harder because of, kind of hard to be like, yes, cocaine and
here's a
gasoline and revenge.
Yeah.
It does have and we didn't really touch on this, but the gadgets, like it does have that camera in there.
Yep.
Which is a pretty neat thing. Like, oh yes, it only works when you touch it. I mean, it's been used before, kind of thing. Like,
it's brought up later.
Yeah, he's used it later there and everything. It's a nice, cool, neat concept.
Yep.
And just you did touch upon the cigarettes using the kind of the C4 sort of thing,
right.
the
tubing
tube.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm trying to think of what other. I mean, there was the laser thing that wasn't really used, but it was just kind of demonstrated. That like taking the picture, shot the laser, and took the X-ray photo, and just I think like, okay, these are just some extra little silly things.
Yeah, that was kind of like the Q branch scene, I guess. Makeshift Q branch scene.
Right. So, how does it say? I guess we roll into scores now.
I think it's that time.
It is that time. So I honestly do not remember what I gave The Living Daylights. I think I gave it a pretty. I think I gave it a pretty high score.
I think we did.
Yeah. Because tying into what I like, but also thinking of, is this how well would this be for a first time viewer sort of thing? Honestly, I'd probably only put it at about a 5.5. Like, I really enjoy the film, but I don't know if this is quite a good film to be showing off the bat for a Bond film.
Yeah, that's fair. It could depend on also what type of movies that individual enjoys. Like if you're running into somebody who is really into those 80s bombastic style movies or really over the top action, you're gonna be like, well, this might be your good.
I've got one for you.
Yeah, like this might be. Right. It's very similar to what you already enjoy. But if you're looking at somebody who's just very much I'll watch anything kind of movie. I just need to be integrated and get some story, but some action, but some romance, and this is probably not a good jumping in point. We have a serious problem. Like 5.5 is the first number that jumped in my mind. So we have a serious problem. I don't know. We haven't been too far enough on
cheating
on
and
many
looking
of these.
at my scorecard. Stop it.
Yeah, no, 5.5 was the number that jumped out to me. Same as you. I can't remember what we gave Living Daylights. It's probably
I want to say
in this number range.
I think I gave it a 6.5. Like, I really
like that high? Okay.
I could be wrong, but either a 6 or a 6.5.
I have to go back and listen. Maybe it was a 6, but like I could be swayed to a 6. Like if I were not thinking of the way you're saying with the scale of like, what would a first time viewer look at this movie? But then the part of you is just like, well, I just want to put my score based on my enjoyment of the movie. So I could easily be swayed into a 6, but I'll stick same as you. I think I'll go with a 5.5.
Okay.
It's way more a fun movie than I think you'd hear most people talk about it, and just very dismissive of this movie for whatever reason. It seems like a lot of Bond fans are, but I enjoy this movie a lot.
Well, yeah, I think it's still a strong film. Yeah, I don't understand. There are more fans, so I'll never understand. So whatever.
Right. Lazenby is king.
No, okay.
That's a very small minority.
I think that is a minority of one.
Well, there's probably a few.
Lazenby himself.
Maybe himself. There's definitely it's definitely changed though on that front for sure though. I definitely think that there was a long time of just people being, he's the worst. There's a reason they moved on from him immediately. But there's definitely become a lot more sympathy for the performance and respect for the effort and everything since then. So, which is cool. Like, it's really cool to see that the guy's kind of got some props for something, right? For, stepping into the role right out of Connor. Like, kid would have been easy. So, but yeah.
Right.
Anyways, yeah. So, 5.5 and 5.5.
5.5. So, which way do you go?
Well, so this is the weird thing. I hold our destiny here. Like, yeah. I'm setting the stage for what's left. So I don't know if you want to have a say in this here, or you're good.
It is up. I'm good.
Okay, because I was just thinking about that 2 days ago. That no matter what I pick is just setting the next film, and then obviously we have our last film already in sequence. So that kind of put some pressure on. I was thinking, like, what do I really go with here? Because I thought I knew what I wanted to pick. And then I did. And then as I thought about, the repercussion is the very next movie, there's no choice. It's just going to have to be that next. Right. So I'm essentially still picking both movies, just the order. Mm-hmm. But to me, like, after thinking about it a little bit longer, GoldenEye has to be the next movie.
Oh, okay.
Just to see what happened, like, and maybe we can get into a little bit of the backstory as to how Dalton doesn't come back, and there's this big gap in time, and it jumps to GoldenEye, and I thought it's just too good a next step rather than go, we're gonna go with you only live twice, which just is completely out of the blue kind of thing. I think it just makes more sense to put that after rather than have a gap from this to that and then to GoldenEye. I just thought, no, let's do GoldenEye next. I think GoldenEye makes sense to me.
Okay. GoldenEye it is.
I mean, this would have been Dalton's movie. And I can see it, like, to some degree. Like, some of the casting would have had to been different probably for the other characters, but I can see it. Like, I can totally picture it. Not that there was anything wrong with Pierce taking over, though, right? Like, he was expected to take over earlier. For a while. So, yeah. Like, Dalton had been waiting, and then Pierce had been waiting, so...
It's all Moore's damned fault.
We would have got either of them sooner. So, it's a fact, like, without us probably spending hours and hours talking, but it is fascinating that these guys came full circle, right? Like, it's very fascinating. And then, like, how they were both ceremoniously dropped at some point, too. So, it's just, like, goes to show, like, how ruthless it can be in Hollywood and how these producers are thinking 4 steps ahead and they're ready to replace you at a drop of a dime. So, it's very interesting. But yeah, so anyways, GoldenEye will be the next movie.
Okay. All right. I'll look forward to that. So, yeah. Have any sort of comments? Some Timothy Dalton love? There'll be no disdain for Timothy Dalton. I would not allow it.
I hope it's just flooded with Roger Moore comments, and you're just constantly deleting them.
Deleting.
Silence.
There'll be no love for Moore. No. Anyways, this is we stand for Timothy Dalton. Or at least I do. But anyways, yeah. If you haven't, give it another look-see, because it is an enjoyable film. From Sushi B and myself. Thanks for listening to all this sort of fun stuff, and we will return.